Hi, so this is the group for flow presentation, and the leader of this group would be Tricia May Tablo, and the members are Timothy James Javier, Kate Andeleon, Win Joy or Acohedo. And the topic assigned to us is various purposes of communication, informative, purposive, and argumentative. So, the introduction of the group and the topic will be on Miss Kate and De Leon, and the discussing of the informative purpose of communication will be on Mr. Timothy James Javier, and the discussing of purposive purpose of communication will be on Miss Trisha May Tablo, and the discussing of argumentative purpose of communication will be on Miss Winjoy Acohedo. And that would be the flow of our presentation of the group 4. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am Timothy James Tolentino Javier, and I'm from Group 4. So before we start our presentation, let's have first an energizer or a cake. So let me present it. Can you can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the title of the game is Guess the Word Rebus Puzzle Game. So before we start our game, let's have first the game mechanics. Okay. So the game mechanics is simple. You have to guess the word being described by arranging the jumbled letters. So all you need to do is to guess the word that being described by arranging the jumbled letters. And second, you will be given a 1 minute to answer each round. And to add to the mechanics, your answer will be posted in the comment box after the round 5. And if you got all the correct answer or you score 5, you will be given a prize. It's sponsored by our leader, Miss Tablo, and 1 point per correct answer. So, is the game mechanics clear? Do you have any question about the game mechanics? Okay. So, okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God, thank you for responding. So, let's start with round 1. So it is defined as the transmission of information. So the 1 minute starts now. Seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So time's up. So it is defined as the transmission of information. It is communication. So next round. So communicating to inform about a specific topic. So your first minute starts now. Again, all your answers on the time. And check by 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. So the correct answer is informative. It is communicating to inform about a specific topic. So very good. Next, let's move on to round 3. Okay, communicating with a purpose mind. So your 1 minute starts now. So again, all your answers will be put on the chat box. Next, bye. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So time's up. Okay, so the correct answer is purposive. Okay, next, round 4. Communicating with an art of persuading based on reason, facts, and not emotion. So your 1 minute starts now. Again, your answer. Next slide, please start. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So time's up. The correct answer is argumentative. So next, the last round, round 5. So the topic of lesson 4. Your timer starts now, or the 1 minute starts now. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So time's up. Okay. So the correct answer, round 5 is purpose of communication. Okay, so number 1 is communication. Number 2 is informative. Number 3 is purposive. Number 4 is argumentative. And number 5 is purpose of communication. So all of those words that you guess you will be encounter it in our discussion or in our presentation. Oh, okay. So thank you guys for participating. I appreciate you all. So thank you.
Okay, let me give you a quick overview. So, communication serves five major purposes. Number one is to inform, to express feelings, to imagine, to influence, and to meet social expectations. Each of these purposes is reflected in a form of communication, and communication is not limited to exchanges between people. It also refers to activities that do not involve people. For example, the word communication may be used to describe the ways that the animals relate to each other. Similarly, it is often said that electronic devices communicate with other people. All such communication happens because participants in the process shares an understanding of a certain symbol and exchange them in a systematic or orderly way. It is important to understand communication as a process, a series of ongoing events that includes sending, receiving, and interpreting a message. So that was our introduction and a quick overview of our topic. And I'm gonna be tackling these five objectives that our presentation have. So the number one is our learning objective is to critically think about communication process and messages. Then the second one would be recognize the effects of diversity, access, and power of communication. These objectives are measured in a variety of ways throughout the student's academic career. The number three is communication help us to construct our social world. It allows us to create and maintain relationship. It helps us to participate in a civic activities in our community, and strong communication skills allow us to advance in our career. Number four, to understand that communication influences all aspects of our public and private lives. The number five, this presentation aims to give us a clear understanding about the communication process, and that would be all.
Good day, everyone. I am Timothy James Valentin Javier from Group 4, and I will be discussing about informative communication. So, informative communication generally focuses on talking about people, events, processes, places, or things. However, informing an audience about one of these subjects without being persuasive is often a difficult task to complete. When people share knowledge about the world in which they live, they are participating in the process of informative communication. Informative messages attempt to present an objective that is truthful and unbiased view of the topics being considered. So next, let's have the informative speech, which is under the informative communication. The topics covered in an informative speech should help the audience to understand a subject better and to remember what they learned later. The goal of this type of speech is not to control the audience to the speaker's point of view. Instead, the details need to be laid before the audience so that they can make an educated decisions or learn about the subject they are concerned with. The main objective of an informative speech is to provide information regarding a specific topic the audience knows nothing about. It may demonstrate how to use a new type of software, explain a new concept in the field of science, describe a business proposal, define a drafting activity, or provide details about a person of interest that the listeners want to learn more about. However, it is important for the speakers to think about how this information will be presented. An informative speech should depend less on pathos, which is an appeal to the emotions of the audience. As an alternative, an informative speech might rely on visual aids. For instance, in order to give the audience a visual representations of important information contained in the speech. Providing the information in multiple forms during the speech increases the likelihood that the audience will retain the information included in the speech. So next, let's talk about the subjects of informative speeches. Informative speeches can cover many subjects as long as they can be talked over without urging or changing the opinions of the spectators. These are the potential subjects for informative speeches. First, we have objects. It delivers informations about any non-human material things. Mechanical objects, animals, plants, and fictional objects are all suitable topics of study. Identify that this is such a comprehensive type. Choose an object that the audience may not be used to or focus on relevant and interesting facts about a familiar object. Next is people. It focuses on real or fictional characters who are living or dead. These speeches require in-depth biographical research that will help introduce a new person to the audience or share little known or surprising information about a person we already know. Although we may already be aware of the accomplishments of historical figures and leaders, audience often enjoy knowing the personal sides of their lives. Next is the concepts. So there are less concrete than speeches about objects or people, as it focuses on ideas or concepts that may be abstract or complicated. A concept can be familiar to us, like equality, or could literally be a foreign concept like qi or qi, which is the Chinese conception of the energy that flows through our bodies. Next is events. Past occasions or ongoing occurrences are the emphasis of this topic. A particular day in history, an unusual observation, or a once-in-a-while occurring event can serve as motivating topics. It is very essential to indicate a backstory for the event, but reusing commonly known information should be avoided. Next is the procedures or process. A step-by-step account of a procedure or natural occurrences is the main subject of this topic. Speakers may walk an audience through or demonstrate a series of activities that happen to complete a procedure. And the last is issues. Speeches about issues provide objective and balanced information about a disputed subject or a matter concerning the society. It is important that speakers view themselves as objective reporters rather than commentators to avoid tipping the balance of the speech from informative to persuasive. Rather than advocating for a particular position, the speaker should seek to teach or raise the awareness of the audience. So let's move on and tackle about effective informative speaking. So there are some challenges to overcome to be an effective informative speaker. They include avoiding persuasion, avoiding information overload, and engaging your audience. So first, let's have avoiding persuasion. So in avoiding persuasion, you need to avoid the thought of informing and influencing, as it's either one or the other. Most persuasive speeches depend on some degree of information to prove the reasoning, and informative speeches, although meant to secure the understanding of an audience, may influence audience members' beliefs, attitudes, values, or behaviors. Speakers can look at three areas to help determine if their speech is more informative or persuasive: speaker purpose, function of information, and audience perception. So next, let's have the avoiding information overload. So many informative speakers tend to pack a 10-minute speech with as much information as possible. This can result in information overload, which is a barrier to effective listening that occurs when a speech contains more information than an audience can process. Next is engaging your audience. So as a speaker, competing for the attentions of the audience against other internal and external provocations is your main barrier. Getting an audience involved and then keeping their attention is a challenge for any speaker. But it can be mainly difficult when speaking to inform. Some speakers fall into the trap of thinking that their content knowledge is enough to sustain them through an informative speech, or that their position in an organization means that an audience will listen to them and appreciate their information despite their delivery. So next, let's talk about the types of informative communication. So informative speech is one that informs the audience. However, as should be clear, this general definition demonstrates that there are many ways to inform an audience. Therefore, there are several types of informative speeches, but the main types of informative speeches includes definition, descriptive, exclamatory, and demonstrative. So, first, let's talk about the descriptive speech. So, a descriptive speech creates a vivid picture in person's mind concerning an object, person, animal, or place. As the saying by J. Thomas goes, pictures are worth 1,000 words. Informing through description entails creating verbal pictures for your audience. So description is also an important part of informative speeches that uses a spatial organizational pattern, since you need to convey the layout of a space or concept. Good descriptions are based on good observations as they transfer what is taken in through senses and answer this type of questions. What did that look like, smell like, sound like, feel like, and taste like? So if descriptions are vivid and well written, they can actually invoke a sensory response from your audiences. For example, your mouth will probably begin to salivate when asked to imagine biting into a fresh, huge, mouth-watering hamburger. By describing it, your audience may be transported to a setting or situation through your given description. Next, let's have demonstrative speech. So, a demonstration or a demonstrative speech explain how to do something. If you have ever sat through a lecture where an educator explained how to create a bibliography, then you have heard a demonstration speech. Like most informative speeches, a how-to speech will possibly use visual examples that show the audience how to move from the step to step through a particular activity. Visualizations help the audience recall what each step looks like, increasing the chance that they will retain the overall information of the speech. A demonstrative speech creates an intellectual image in audience members' minds. Most people are having a hard time completing a task while speaking. It requires advanced psychomotor skills that needs to be practiced. Duties suddenly become tougher than we assume when we have an audience. Have you ever had to type while people are reading along with you? Even though we have type all the time, even one extra set of eyes seems to make our fingers more clumsy than usual. TV chefs are excellent examples of speakers who often inform through demonstration, while numerous of them make the process of speaking while cooking look effortless. It took much practice in order to execute their speeches. So next, let's have exclamatory speech. So exclamatory speech explains, describe, and inform the audience about the given topic. Naturally, they focus on how and why rather than just telling them about a subject. This leaves the audience with a deeper understanding of the subject matter rather than just a summary. This method of informing may be useful when a topic is too complex or abstract to demonstrate. When presenting complex information, make sure to break the topic up into adaptable units, avoid information overload, and include examples that make the content significant to the audience. And last, let's have the definition speech. So a definition speech explains the meaning, theory, or philosophy of a specific topic that the audience likely does not know much about. The topics may be general, such as sport, or very specific, like a particular person. The main objective of this speech is to educate the audience for them to understand the main points of these subjects. There are several ways a speaker can inform through definition: synonyms and antonyms, use or purpose, example, and etymology. So that's all. I hope you learned something about informative communication. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Tricia Macy Tablo and I will be discussing another approaches of communication, and that is purposive communication. So first, let us know what is purposive communication. According to the first bullet, purposive communication is defined as a type of communication that takes place with a purpose in mind. So, general communications takes place for serving five purposes, such as informing, expressing feelings, imagining, influencing, and meeting social expectations. But when you utilize purposive communication, you don't just communicate, you also plan and execute a communication process to fulfill any purposes. Next bullet, it is the spreading of message of communication or an idea to a specific group of audiences in the best suited formats and through the right channels. So today, purposive communications have become an eminent part of personal, social, as well as professional networks, as it highly used in not just maintaining professionalism but also in attaining a particular objective. This purposive communication can happen in different channels and forms, but we need to use it is required to use the right format, medium, and the right language to express the message correctly and to enhance performance to achieve the exact result or what you want to achieve. In line with this, there are different types of communication skills that are used in such forms of purposive communications. Here are the following: listening, speaking, reading, writing, and viewing. The examples of purposive communications are also presented in here. So first example is reporting on group work or assignments. Next is writing and delivering a formal speech, writing minutes of meetings and similar documents, preparing research or technical paper, and last, making an audiovisual or web-based presentations. Now let's move on to the casual oral versus purposive communications. So as oral communication is also a part of purposive communication, there are a lot of times when people tend to be confused between these two. So here are some of the elements that can help evaluate the two and bring out the difference between these two forms. First, we have the communication mode. So in the case of casual oral communication, the mode of communication is speaking. The individuals can communicate with each other casually and without worrying about the fact that they have to maintain a particular hierarchy or so. But in purposive communication, this is not the case, as it can have several modes such as written as well as oral. Individuals here can talk about the phone calls, or can also choose different modes such as seminars, meetings, and other to communicate through the channel of oral communication. Next is the structure. So in casual oral communication, there is no structure or format used. As I've mentioned earlier, the speaker is free to speak his or her ideas at his or her will. So the speaker here usually has a casual approach and does not have to be formal in attitude. But in the case of purposive communication, a particular structure and format are used for sharing an idea or a message. So, for example, if it is an email or a notice, it is essential to follow the right structure of the email, such as the salutation, the greetings, and others, in order to maintain professional decorum. Similar is in the case of chats and other written communication. And even in the case of oral communication, in purposive communication, the speaker needs to maintain a professional attitude and have to maintain a proper format, such as offering greetings before speaking to a particular person. Third, we have the feedback. So, in casual oral communication, there is such no requirement of formal feedback, even if the feedback is instantly attained in here. So, for example, when you are having when you are speaking to someone or to your friend, and you are talking about something about your lives, the person or your friend responds to your message instantly and also offers you a feedback or reply over what you are telling to her or him, right? So that is an example of feedback in casual oral communication. Now, when you are having a purposive communication, the feedback depends a lot on the mode of communication that a person or you have selected. So, for example, if you are communicating with other people through face-to-face or through a phone call, there are chances that you can get an instant feedback. But when it is written communication, such as through email, messenger, or anything, there are high chances that you might get feedback after a couple of hours or even after a few days in some cases. Last element, we have the record. So in casual oral communication, when two people are speaking to each other casually, there is no such requirement of maintaining any record. Like in this form of communication, even there is something to remember, the listener remembers it in the mind or in his or her mind, and there is such no requirement of maintaining a physical record of it. An example, if this is a chit chat or simple chats with your friends, diba? Like, you don't need to record it, like to have a physical record of your conversations or your video of communicating to each other. So in contrast to this, purposive communication maintains a record of what is being spoken or what messages are being shared. So even when it is a meeting where the form of communication is oral, there is a person who notes down the minutes of the meeting to maintain the record. In purposive communication, whether it is form of emails or chat applications or any forms, the messages shared are saved so that they can be opened up in the future whenever it is required to make reference or you needed it again. So to sum it up, Purposive communication is the practice of using different communication forms like writing, speaking, and presenting for various purposes associated with different target audiences. It is the main mode of communication that is used in different organizations for the seamless transport of messages, data, and ideas. This can happen in different channels and forms. However, its basic concept is all about good structure and defined formats to fulfill a certain purpose. And purposive communication is not only essential for solving conflicts, but also for building up relations with each other. While casual communication is the mode of communication in daily life, purposive communications are mainly used for corporates and other professional purposes.
Good day, everyone. I am Winja Cohedo, and today I'm going to discuss argumentative communication. So, first, does anyone here have any idea what argumentative communication is? Well, argumentation is a social process having an agreement involved of two or more individuals responding to one another claims and support. Agreement is not simply restating the same claims and reason. Rather, it is supporting, modifying, or defending position accordingly. As a process, argument unfold based on the contribution of the dialogue of the participants. Argumentation aims to gain adherence from an audience. Also, it is a listener and audience oriented activity, even if the audience is just one person. Ultimately, one wishes to pursue the audience the act on the advanced claim, whether it's to encourage action or to gain support. So while argumentative individual advocates position on controversial issues and verbally attack other people's contradictive perspective. In a word, it is an underlying motivation to argue. However, it is always important to note that it is the person position that is under attack in argumentation and not the individual. Okay, always remember that. So, some example of argumentation argumentative communication is debate, court hearings, argumentative speeches, and meeting the advance. Now, why people argue and why do we need to argue? People argue seems obvious because they argue for four main reasons. First is to clarify thinking as individual or a group. Oftentimes, individuals and groups do not know what they believe, but they are still faced with the information that requires interpretation. Argument can help individuals and groups to learn about that issues. The second one is to explain or to defend action or beliefs. Next is to solve problems or make judgments. Well, the world is full of controversies and about how we act. So argument help facilitate decision making about what we should and we should not do. Of course, the last one is to have fun. Of course, participating in the clash of ideas can be an intellectually pleasurable, right? Argument is not always serious. In fact, most of the argument that people have are mostly unimportant issue. So why it is important? And simply because argument teaches us how to evaluate confliction of claims and judges evidence or methods of investigation. Argument help us to clarify our thoughts and anticipate them accurately. Argument also consider the ideas of other in respectful and critical manner, right? Now on our next slide, we're going to talk about the three primary forms of proofs. According to Aristotle, there is a three primary forms of proofs, and they are logos, ethos, and pathos. So what is ethos? Ethos is when the speaker or the writer appeals to their authority as a means of persuasion. It is building trust by establishing your credibility and authority. while pathos is the act of evoking emotion of our audience or the reader in order to persuade. The speaker or writer uses words to manipulate people into feeling of empathy, desire, anger, joy, or any emotions, appealing to emotion by connecting with our audience through their values and interests. While logos is the act of appealing to the logic of the audience or the readers. It appeals to intelligence and well-constructed and clearly argued idea. Some example of this is the advertisement, citation of statistics, facts, data, and charts. After we tackle about the three primary forms of group that is according to Aristotle, now according to Lucas 2007, claims that to avoid defective agreement are the following. We must avoid this. First one is the defective evidence, the misuse of facts or inappropriate evidence. The two is effective pattern of reasoning, evidential fallacies, slippery slope, confusing facts with opinion, red herring, flawed proofs, and defective agreement. Those are the things we must avoid in argumentation. So I think that is all for my topic, and thank you for listening. Again, I am Wingshop Heda, and we are Group 2. And that's my uh, argumentation communication, argumentative communication topic. Thank you for listening.